Welcome back to Fox 5 on the Hill Live this Sunday morning. You know, on Tuesday, Maryland voters are going to head to the polls to vote in the primaries. We want to begin with a U.S. Senate race, which is getting a lot of national attention right now. Nicole Bennett is the first vice chair of the Maryland Republican Party, and Rushern Baker, familiar face, of course, the former Prince George's County executive and a convention delegate candidate. Thanks for joining us this morning. We talked with Bob McCartney in an earlier conversation about how much attention this race is getting right now. Nicole, let's start with you. Yeah. This was viewed as a slam dunk for the Democrats before Larry Hogan got in the race. Do you still feel like Democrats are in a position where they're going to dunk on the Republicans?
Oh, absolutely not. One of the things that I can say about Larry Hogan, his best position is underdog. Ask Anthony Brown. 2014, Larry Hogan was a veritable nobody on a bigger stage in Maryland. Look at him now. 2 successful terms as governor, that $10 billion swing, he came in with a $5 billion deficit, left with a $5 billion surplus. That's hard to beat.
Governor likes to take no opportunity to remind me that I did not think he was going to win that race, and he did. Ms. Baker, there was a remarkable moment this past week on Wednesday when four of the previous Maryland State Democratic chairs came together, one of them Mike Leggett, right, to say that they were very concerned about what they saw was negativism in the Democratic race, particularly in the Trone campaign, and they are worried right now that your Democrats are not going to come back together again in order to meet the challenge if Hogan winds up being the nominee. Do you share those concerns? Has the Democratic primary gotten too nasty?
Well, I don't know if this has gotten too nasty. I do share their concerns. I mean, we've got to be united in order to win in November, and so that's what they were trying to get across to both candidates, but especially to the Trone campaign, which I think took some shots at the county executive that were unnecessary. And so, but I believe in the end of this, it's too important a race for us not to come back together, and I think you will see that.
Of course, one of the things we were talking about earlier was the fact that the top of the ticket, of course, will be dominated by the presidential candidates. Donald Trump was in the Garden State of New Jersey over the last couple of days, a state in which he has a residence, as a matter of fact, holding a rally. It's been interesting to watch these two candidates basically on different tracks right now. Trump has been having to deal with this trial. Biden has been trying to get back out there again in earnest, a big West Coast trip this past week. Nicole, how damaging from a political sense has the Trump criminal trial been to his fortunes come November?
You know, in some communities, I think it is devastating. If I'm being frank, when you look at people who are what we like to call moderate Republicans, these are people who are kind of looking at that criminal trial and going, you know, I don't know if I can hold my nose and pull the lever for Donald Trump. However, it has energized his base, who feel like he was wrongfully indicted. This whole thing was a political stunt, and it's really motivated people to get out there.
But if I may, in Maryland, you are outnumbered 3 to 1. You need everybody on deck in November. If some of those Trump supporters look at Larry Hogan and say, well, he's a rhino, as they like to call him, and a never-Trumper, how is that going to hurt your Senate prospects?
We've taken that challenge head on. Listen, if I could make peace between two people, it would be these two people, Larry Hogan and Donald Trump. They're very big personalities, very different type of men. However, we need them both. Trump definitely needs Hogan to win that Senate seat, and they've both kind of taken a step back from the negative rhetoric in order to do the right thing for the party.
Now, on the Democratic side, Rushern, Democrats are not without their issues as well, too. Right. There's a saying, be blessed with good opponents in life. And Joe Biden has been able to kind of sit back a little bit while this trial in New York has had at times some very salacious things come out of it to appear presidential. Does what Trump has been through the last couple of weeks boost Biden or make any of these concerns about his age or his fitness for office right now go away?
I think so. I mean, you haven't heard the talk about President Biden's age when this trial is going on. And I think what you now see is that the numbers for President Biden are going up. People are starting to pay attention to what he's doing, and he does look presidential. And I think that will help the eventual nominee for us in the Senate race in November.
We got about a minute left here, but there are other congressional seats that are open in Maryland. We've had a number of people retire besides Senator Carton. When you look at the races, which one do you think has the best shot for you in the Republican column?
CD6. I'm looking at 6. We've got some tremendous candidates in that area. CD6 was a part of our less gerrymandered map.
And that was the seat that David Trone is leaving
Yes.
now. Rushern?
I think for us, you're going to see 2 women, I think, go to the Congress, something we haven't seen in a while. I think both in 6, I think we're going to win that one. And I think in the Sarbanes seat, we'll see a woman there.
A lot of competition in that seat as
Yes.
well, too. John Sarbanes, of course, a longtime member of the House. We thank you so much for joining us. Rushern Baker, the former Prince George's County Executive, Nicole Bennett, the first Vice Chair of the Maryland Republican Party. Good to see you.
Good to see
All right,
you.
and we're going to see him on primary day as well, too.